Welcome, Internet, to the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the video game world. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. This week's episode, we're going to be coming to you guys with a deep dive into the newest announced Hogwarts Legacy game, a new Witcher game being announced, and Sony acquiring a new studio. If you like that and you want to hear more, you can always find us wherever you get your podcast by searching for Pixel Play Podcast or on the YouTubes if you want to see us do it with our lovely faces. If you guys want to be part of the show, you can always email and get in touch with us either at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to us on our social channels, Pixel Playcast. We also have a Discord where we'd love for you to join us and be part of the group. Lots going on there, lots of great discussions. It'd be a little bit better if you were there, though. With that being said, let's jump into it. Adam, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I just want to start off with a quote. So this is from the illustrious Kevin the Muffin Mon in our Discord saying, "I just listened to the podcast. Adam 100% got this trophy stumper. It was slide 3 from the collection. All the trophies I picked were slide 3. While technically part of the collection, the trophy lists are separate." So I didn't want to say I was correct, but I do actually.
So I brought this up with the commissioner, and generally yes, while it is a situation where there is some gray zone, they will give you the W for this one in the sense that it was technically the third Sly Cooper, but in the Sly Cooper collection. So in this case, the ruling falls in your favor, sir.
Look. I usually just like winning outright. So I did.
Well, we'll see how this week goes, sir.
I know, I've probably put my foot in my mouth on this one now, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so huge week in gaming. Lots of news coming out this week. Probably one of the biggest ones that came out was basically immediately after last week's episode. This was the state of play for Hogwarts Legacy. If you haven't checked out the state of play, there is a bit of news there so you can check out. But I figured we'd kind of go through a deep dive and then we can kind of talk about what our thoughts are. So, Adam, with Hogwarts Legacy, this is a original story taking place in the Hogwarts universe, taking place in and around the 1800s. You are a fifth-year student joining Hogwarts a little bit late, so there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for you. It is an open world action RPG being published by WB under the Portkey label and developed by Avalanche. So the story generally takes place that there is essentially a goblin uprising led by a goblin named Ranrock. So yeah, are you a big Harry Potter fan? Like, are you familiar with the lore at all?
I mean, vaguely, when the movies were first coming out, I was watching them, and in terms of kind of having a good knowledge of what it was, it stops at about Order of the Phoenix. After that, I kind of fell out of it because, well, I was older than 18 and I stopped dating people that desperately needed to go see the movies every time they came out, so it just kind of fell away. And also, things like Mass Effect kind of started taking over at that point where I saw, oh, this is what trilogies that actually tell decent stories, except the ending, look like. So I vaguely know, most of it's from what I remember being younger, seeing the first couple ones. But if you ask me what happens in, say, Half-Blood Prince, I would be like, I don't even know what the plot is in that one.
Yeah, I know the general story. My wife is a Harry Potter fan, so I watched the movies with her, but I never read the books. But for this game, you are sort of being involved in dealing with a goblin uprising. And I got this from IGN. This is from, I believe it's Leon Taylor. My apologies if I didn't get it right, but it's from IGN. So they write that the relationship between goblins and wizards and witches is tense, with the way goblins are treated by wizard kind being the main driver of these rebellions. I guess there had been 3 prior to this one. Considered inferior to wizard kind in the Harry Potter franchise by many wizards, goblins are subjected to prejudice and segregation. One such example includes a law forbidding goblins from carrying wands. In a detailed PlayStation blog on Hogwarts Legacy, Avalanche Studios community manager Chandler Wood notes that Ranrock's hatred of wizards skews his worldview. Avalanche narrative lead Moira Squire mentions that Ranrock, has a similar seen a glimmer of magic that the wizard kind tried to hide, even from themselves, and he wants that power in particular. More interestingly, we can see through the gameplay presentation that the goblins in Hogwarts Legacy will be using magic in the game. We even see Ranrock using magic himself at one point without a wand, though it has not been confirmed that goblins can use magic without one. Then they also talk about a character named Victor Rookwood. Victor Rookwood is the second villain we briefly are introduced to in the Legacy State of Play. Rookwood leads a faction of dark wizards who form an uneasy alliance with Ranrock in Hogwarts Legacy. Based on the last name, there's a possibility that Victor Rookwood may be related to another wizard, Augustus Rookwood. Augustus is another dark wizard who was a devoted follower of Lord Voldemort and a Death Eater. As Igor Karkaroff alleges in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Rookwood worked as a double agent for Voldemort while employed at the Department of Mysteries before being arrested and imprisoned in Azkaban. Although Avalanche Software has yet to confirm or deny this relation, it is interesting to note how both share the same last name and are shown to have affiliated themselves with wizards and witches that practice dark magic. Uh, I'm kind of curious, like the way that they're saying that, like goblins are like not treated well and are you playing as the bad guy? Like, are the wizards the bad guy in this game?
Yeah, they kind of make it interesting how it's going to be like the moral ambiguity between all this. You know, you're just kind of going to be the one that's like, look, I'm just trying to protect people so that no one dies. Like, I'm assuming that's kind of the vibe that's coming off of this. It's like, look,
Yeah.
it's like Killmonger in the original parts of Black Panther, where it's like, look, Killmonger is actually not that bad, and then by the end of the movie, you're like, oh, okay, you're going too far. So it feels like a bit of a trope that I'm starting to get a little annoyed with. It's like, look, no, they're actually the good guys, only because they're fighting good guys that went too far bad.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting because, like, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't like the initial like sense that I'm getting from this, but I mean, we'll talk deeper as the game goes on. How I'm like still pretty perplexed of a lot of decisions in this game to begin with. So you keep going with this part for now, and then we'll work on the rest later.
Yeah, so I kind of find it interesting that you like there's a goblin uprising, and once again it's a bunch of kids from it's one school and a bunch of kids from this one school who once again have to like save the world. Like, where are adults in this universe? And it's like always up to like the 14-year-olds to fix everything.
There must be some sort of magic barrier around Hogwarts that makes every single person under the age of 16 like the most powerful wizards on the planet, and the second they leave or like hit or basically, it feels like the second you lose your virginity in the Harry Potter world, you suddenly lose your magic power by about half. I'm not sure what the lore is in Harry Potter, but it's starting to feel like in that sense, you shouldn't get laid or just be a child, and you're guaranteed to have like excess magic power. I guess that's how it works. I'm saying that jokingly, of course. You just have to be young. That's it.
Yeah, it's just it's weird. Like it's once again like everything always revolves around Hogwarts, and it's always like the Hogwarts thing. And that kind of brings me to the next point. So yeah, you're going to be playing in Hogwarts. It's a fully open world. You can go explore it. There's all sorts of things to explore. You can fly around on brooms, have broom races and stuff. It's weird that so much of the Harry Potter world always takes place around Hogwarts. Like, is this the only school for wizards? Like, nothing happens at any of the other schools? Like, it seems a very shallow world.
I don't mind that this is what it is, because it's the easiest set piece that everybody knows. Even if you're a casual fan, you know exactly what Hogwarts is. I honestly, though, if I have a real problem with this game, is that it's trying way too hard to have an original story when you really, if you're gonna, this is the first crack at doing a really big Harry Potter game in the for like really, there's been the movie tie-in games and stuff like that. There's never really been a game that does something this original. And I feel like the best way to do it would not have been, by the way, here you are, you're actually a fifth year, but you've only just gotten to the school, so good luck learning all this stuff. I would really prefer them doing a trilogy. Like, it really makes sense if you want to go with this so hard, why don't you start as a beginning student and learning? Because now you're going to throw all this, like, ridiculously powerful magic spells at you in one fell swoop, and now you feel like, oh, it's just another game where I'm going to get to be a god within 10 hours, which, great. I get to go blast stuff, but now what's the stakes? What's the learning curve? It's just, oh, I'm just almighty. Like I kind of hate that lack of progress personally.
Mhm. See, I think the problem is that if they go that route of doing like a trilogy and you start off as like a first year, then it's kind of like you have a problem where it's okay. Well, how much can you do as a first year? And it might seem like, no offense, the first Harry Potter, like the Philosopher's Stone, it's really like mild stuff compared to what they get to, and I don't know how well that would translate into
Well, you
the
don't
game.
have to just stick with one character. If you want to do bigger set pieces, you can always have like one of the teachers you can play as temporarily for a mission or something like that.
Yeah. No,
Like
I
there's
think
always
I
ways
think
around it. Like for God's sakes, like as a JRPG guy, there's the Trails of Cold Steel series. You literally start in this 4-game series at year 1 and work your way out to the point of you becoming a professor later in the series. And
mhm,
there are fights where you will lose, and there are times in the story that you play as the older characters that are more experienced, or you have them in your
mhm.
party. So it balances. So story wise, it balances how you're able to get through certain parts. I think there's ways to do it. I just don't like how, as I said earlier, so many games do this thing. And Mass Effect, one of my favorite series, is guilty for it too. You're already a god. I want to become the legend. I don't want to be a 5th year in this game and suddenly have all these spells right off the very bat. I would rather it be that I start learning out low tier spells and eventually through experience, I get to like level up the spells and now they become bigger, kind of like a Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3 going back to like old Final Fantasy days. I'd like it to be to a point that it's easier to get to really fall in love with your character when there's progression towards that character. It feels like in this case, you're already walking in apparently as an experienced magician. You're a 5th year already. You may be
You're a wizard, not
behind
a magician. You're not a
whatever.
magician. They do
Whatever.
tricks. Wizards do magic.
I mean, apparently you're doing tricks because you're learning 5 years of material really quick. Does that count as a magic trick?
They're illusions, Michael. Classic Arrested Development joke.
But either way, like it's just another series of tropes that kind of goes like, okay, you're doing this because you want it to be as safe as possible. I get it. I was just sitting here watching this trailer and going, man, if you really wanted to take it one step further, just go the extra mile and make it obvious that you're going to go for more than one game. Say you're starting out for your first time in this, so that people go, oh, you're actually trying really hard because you want this to be a series. Whereas I see this trailer and be like, man, if this game fails, it's not like it has anywhere to go. You're already basically about to graduate.
See, I don't think it's gonna fail. I think this is like a guarantee.
I'm not
It's gonna be a
saying it is,
success.
but if it does, you have an easy out because it's not like this character was going to do much after this because you're going to graduate. And as we seem to learn by what we said earlier, apparently once you leave the school, you stop being powerful. So who cares?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So some of the cool stuff that they did mention in the game is, or they mentioned it afterwards, like community manager Chandler Wood, confirmed there's not gonna be any microtransactions in the game, which is cool. No online multiplayer. It is going to be $70 or £70 on both PlayStation and Xbox, which is interesting. You could be sorted out into any different school, and it seems like each one is kind of unique. It's kind of cool that you can play as either like a Slytherin or Ravenclaw or Gryffindor, and nobody wants to play as Hufflepuff. But yeah,
I'll play as
where
Hufflepuff
what's
to spite people.
what school would you like? What house do you think you would be under if
I
you were in
think when
Harry
I did
Potter?
a test, it usually comes up Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I think I'd be the same. So,
I mean, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be Ravenclaw for what I actually am, or it's going to be a Slytherin because I want to be a troll.
yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
figurative one. I mean, a metaphorical one, of course.
You
I'm
don't
not
want to
going
live
to be
under
a
a bridge?
troll in the dungeon.
You don't want to live under a bridge?
Well, it
So,
depends. Do they get like how expensive can I make the tolls? Because I might be able to make a good chunk of change.
yeah, that's true. You're just getting revenue. That's just guaranteed income.
Exactly.
You're charging the toll. Yeah. So watching the game, like the one thing that I kind of looked at is the gameplay seemed cool in terms of like doing the magic and stuff and like having different spell abilities and stuff. But at the same time, it's like I also look at that and how long does that combat carry over before it gets like just standing there just like, throwing magic balls at people?
Yeah, I do have the same thought process as well. You know, when you don't see a HUD on the screen, everything can look really cool. But when you ask the questions that follow up, what does the HUD look like? What are the button inputs? How long does it take to get that spell chain? Is that something you have to level up and unlock, like the combos? Like, what all goes into this? Because sure, it looks cool on screen, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be doing that every time you fight. And even if that was the case, let's assume you even can do all that chaining right away. How long until that stops being fun? How long until it's just, oh, this is the best combo that does the most damage, let me just spam this? So it's kind of the worry you have in stuff like this, where what if half of the spells are kind of useless and you just end up using like this specific set chain in this specific way to work for certain enemies? Like that's the thing you worry about with all these things. And granted, you're never really going to know the answer until you actually play it. So the combat like looks awesome theoretically. It's just a matter of, okay, does it control that way? And does it evolve that way as the game progresses? Or is it just going to be the same, hit these buttons and boom, things go flying?
Yeah, that's kind of like, because I'm on a double-edged sword, because I know the hypocrisy that I'm loving and playing Horizon, and it's basically the same sort of situation where it's just, you're just shooting a bow all the time. But the intricacy that I think Horizon does is that there is like some gameplay decision to it, in that using certain weapons on certain enemies has certain effects. So like maybe it's gonna work out, but I kind of look at it and just shooting, magic out of your wand for 10 to 30 hours might get repetitive, and I worry that it's gonna have a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of feel, if you know what I'm talking about, where it's just, okay, I'm shooting my gun again. It gets like, the combat gets very uninteresting.
There's a lot of things that red flag it for me, like the combat in particular gets my attention because it does look like the kind of thing that we can kind of samey over and over. The big one in considering too, like, how a lot of open world games suffer from this, is the sense that I get from the trailer is that they tried really hard to make this a big world, and that always worries me now, because a big world doesn't always mean lifeful. It doesn't always mean that there's a lot to do. And I also saw a lot of needless things being put in the game. I don't understand the if anybody remembers like the Chow world in Sonic Adventure, where it was like this side place where you raise like your pets. I don't get this part in Hogwarts. Like, does it need to be there? There's the Room of Requirement stuff where I think it's more simply like, hey, here's just a way to grind some extra stuff, although that feels kind of mobile gamey, which worries me. But again, no microtransactions. Presumably it stays that way. We'll see if it actually lasts that way before things change. I just get the sense from watching this trailer overall that there's a lot of things that I don't think need to be here, and that's the only things that they've shown. Because there also could be a bunch of mini games. What's the quests gonna look like? Like, are there a lot of grindy quests? I have a bad feeling that a lot of this game is gonna be either meaningless or really grindy, and just to try to take some extra time out of you. And as I've learned in, say, Assassin's Creed games, and I just finished Horizon recently, and I didn't even complete everything in the open world because the grind got to me. There comes a point in these games where you got to be able to find that fine line between getting everything that you need done to enhance the story that you're playing, or just getting a bunch of things done so that people don't feel like they're getting cheated out of money. Because we've kind of devised, apparently, as a gaming community, that hours played is a big part of why a game's got to be good. To which I go, I don't know, there's some pretty good 4 to 6 hour games out there that are just as good as games that are 40.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you kind of touched on, but I think kind of just missed one aspect, was that there's also probably an aspect that, because this is being designed for Harry Potter fans, that there is going to be a certain level, like there's a certain level of fan service, right? So like having that, taking care and like raising animals, like that's probably an aspect of Harry Potter that, people just kind of hope for or expect in the game. So it may not necessarily be from a gamification aspect, but it may just be a appeasing or fan service to the Harry Potter fans, because once again, we're not that group.
But then my argument would be, is this game going to be any good then if there's a lean towards fan service? Because as we've learned, sometimes that usually takes away the fact that the game isn't going to run as properly as it should, or it's not going to be, the pacing isn't going to be as good as you want it to be. I'm not I know people are probably going to listen to me talking and thinking that, oh, he's just downplaying this game a lot. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I kind of am. But it's not because I don't want it to be good. It's just because I see a lot of signs that I've seen in so many games that I've seen similar kind of hype to. And I keep saying it. This game has been in development forever and has been rebooted twice. And I know that we've said in prior episodes that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be bad. But precedent's been set that usually games that take this long and also get redone as many times as this does, that a lot gets lost because different people have taken different pieces. Sometimes you're jumbling it all together somehow. Like, there's always those worries. And I also have to have the extra bit of caution when it's something licensed, and especially something of this magnitude, because this is a big deal to have a
Mhm.
game this is really like a AAA Harry Potter game that we've never seen before. In the
Mhm.
same vein of like before we found out that Matrix was a thing for Unreal Engine 5 is more of a tech demo and not an actual game. Even watching that tech demo went okay, but the game might still take a lot of liberties because they know if they just put the game out with that title on it, it's going to sell. So my worry
Mhm.
always comes with what I see linked with, oh, if they put Hogwarts on it, people are just going to buy it because it's Harry Potter. In the same vein that a lot of people bought Avengers because it's just said Avengers on it, and we all know how that turned out. So for every
Yeah.
Avengers, there's a Spider-Man. So it's very possible that like this game ends up being amazing, similar to what I said with Deathloop, that, it might actually be really good despite all my caution. It's just the 14-minute gameplay trailer that we got didn't exactly make me go, "Oh, wow, I think this actually might be really good." It more or less just made me go, "Okay, it actually looks pretty good. Like
Mhm.
visually it looks like they did a fantastic job." But I have a lot of questions as to all these weird little decisions that they've made. The story's the big one for me because like I said earlier, I don't like the idea that they're just throwing your character in way late in your term, so it doesn't really give you a chance to really like I guess fall into like interest with everybody else. Like you're just going to be expected to become friends with all these characters within like a couple of minutes, it seems. Like storyline, you're going to be best friends with some people in like days.
Isn't that how
Whereas,
best friends happen?
yeah, I suppose. I suppose in game logic, that's usually how it works.
I think that's just a plot device that they're trying to use just for that tutorialization of just like, hey, you don't know any spells. Here's all your classes to learn how to do spells. Because if you did like, hey, you've been here for 5 years and you don't know how to like levitate something, get lost,
Yeah,
loser.
but I mean, you could always make the argument. Here you are, year one. Here's all your friends that you're going to be making over the course of these years that you're going to spend here, and you can fast forward into much further areas of the game.
Mm,
Like the tutorial can almost be year one if you really want to.
mhm,
You can almost tell a story, and let's say the game's 30, 40 hours. Let's just use that as a buffer. You can tell like 3 years minimum of your journey in Hogwarts very easily in that time frame because you can fast forward through year one real fast. Because all it really
mhm.
is you trying to make friends, you dealing with the Malfoy of the game, and probably catch a golden snitch or two, and learn some spells along the way. You can do
Yeah.
that in like the first 5 hours of the game, and then by year two, you can start the story, like the main parts of the story that develop. Because a Goblin Uprising, for example, I don't think happens in days or weeks. This is like months, if not years, of events and planning and different like schmittering of riots and stuff before the big one happens. You can tell that story easily without just plopping a character that you just made in a character creative for probably 2 hours if you're like me with character creators. And all of a sudden, you are going to learn this mishmash of spells that you can combo like 2 hours in. And I guarantee you, it's probably going to be like weeks have passed at most. Where it kind of takes away like the disillusion. You don't get nearly as sucked in that way. But again,
Mhm.
these are probably minor things to like super Harry Potter fans that they're just going to be happy to see that thing. So I
Oh, they're
guess
yelling at us right now.
I'm
They're
sure they
they're
are.
like, you don't get it.
But keep in mind, you are talking about people that are coming from more of an outside source. We are here for games too. It doesn't have to just be like I'm sure there are people that look at Witcher lore and went like, "Ah, oh, they didn't do this right in Witcher 2." And there's all these things. So I mean, I'm going to look at it as a game perspective, and as I see it, I see a game that could have promise, but also makes a few decisions that make me go, I think you might have kind of rushed this a bit, or you might have made a couple of weird decisions just to try to fit some stuff in, I guess.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, I'm just looking at the Hogwarts Legacy Q&A, and I mentioned briefly that Warner Brothers is publishing this Hogwarts Legacy under the Portkey Games label, and so they ask, what does Portkey mean, and why have you chosen it for this label? They're going through a whole long thing here, but what I took away from it is that for Portkey Games, it symbolizes how games under this label will transport fans to their own adventures inspired by the wizarding world. So and then they follow up, what type of games will be developed under the Portkey Games? So Portkey Games will enable developers to create a variety of new and immersive gaming experiences that are all inspired by J.K. Rowling's wizarding world. These experiences have not been written by J.K. Rowling and will not be directed at adaptations of books and films. These are games that have been created for the fans by game makers who themselves are fans and have been inspired by the Wizarding World. So the one other thing I take away is that this is probably going to be the first of many sort of
Assuming it does
Hogwarts
well.
Wizarding World games. Yeah, but I mean it's Harry Potter. It's one of those properties that's just going to print money.
I mean, sure, but is Avengers printing money?
I mean they haven't stopped that game yet.
Yeah, to be honest, I am actually surprised. But it really depends. Like, we know that it's not going to get less than a 6 because that's just how game reviews work now. But like, you'll know right away. Like, for example, Ghostwire Tokyo is getting 7s on average, which is usually saying it's actually not that good, but we can't give it too much lower because we don't want to get in trouble. If Hogwarts Legacy comes out to a lot of 7s, be very afraid if you haven't bought it yet. Or if you have pre-ordered it, be also extra afraid and maybe cancel your pre-order just in case, because there might be some things going on with that. Now, if it comes out to 9s, well, then we got a different story. But like, I don't know. And when it comes to making other games, going back to what you said with the Portkey stuff, I mean, you figure Quidditch has to have something to do with it.
Probably, yeah.
Now, I would rather them not try to go too realistic. I'd rather look. I've played Quidditch World Cup on PS2 when that came out back in the day. It sucks. Okay? It was bad. Just make a low, like, it doesn't have to be good looking graphically. Just make an arcadey style, like, Quidditch game. You don't have to go crazy 3D with, like, all these extra 4K, like, lighting effects. Make this thing as looking like a PS2 game, but plays like a dream, okay? You don't need to go too hard on this because all people want is a goddamn cool looking Quidditch game.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, I don't know what you would do beyond it. Because, I mean, again, I'm not a big lore guy, so, and I haven't even watched any of the new ones. I don't even can't remember what they're called now.
Oh, the Fantastic Beasts or whatever.
Thank you. Yeah. I just have
watched
no
the first one.
interest.
It's fine.
It's just it doesn't do it. Like, also, there's enough movies out there that I have to spend money on in the theaters. I don't need to find other ones to spend on. It's bad enough as it is.
That's one of the things I wonder too, is that, like, does Harry Potter still have like the same cachet that it did before? Like, is this game coming out too late? I mean, I know there's the whole controversy with J.K. Rowling and people have a whole bunch of issues with her. They're and like the Fantastic Beasts are not, as beloved as the original movies. Like, is this more of a nostalgia property? Like, is it a little too late for that game?
I mean, we'll know for sure when the sales come out. Do I think it's too late now? No. Harry Potter's big enough that it still has that attention. I mean, clearly got its own state of play, and it got quite a lot of buzz around it. But we'll see how it goes moving forward, because, I mean, not every game with a Star Wars label on it is doing extremely well. So
yeah,
at some point, it eventually has to slow down if the quality isn't there. There's a reason why Marvel games right now are doing as well. Even Avengers, as much as I hate to admit it, like, got some sales at the start. Now, does it have an active player base? Well, it's a different question in its own.
They made one good Marvel game. Spider-Man.
Oh, I was thinking, like, well, there's 2 Spider-Man games that are really good.
I'm putting Spider-Man under one. Like, let's be honest. Like,
so I mean, we're at a point like that, because it's so fresh, because we haven't had a Harry Potter game to this extent in forever. Because once the movies went away, you stopped seeing all those games. Not that any of them are really that good. The only one that I think was any good, randomly enough, was like a JRPG style Harry Potter on the Game Boy Color that I think was It was either Chamber of Secrets. Actually, I think it was Chamber of Secrets. And it actually was pretty good. As a kid, I'm like, even as like a 12, 13-year-old kid, when I played it, I went, this is actually not badly put together. This is okay. I played on an emulator, like, I don't know, like a few years ago randomly, just to remind myself what it looked like. I'm like, hey, at least they didn't make it like total ass. It's not like amazing, but hey, it actually did its job. But most of the Harry Potter games that we can remember coming out were always like movie tie-in games or the Quidditch World Cup game that generally aren't very good, because back in those days, anything that was a tie-in had a 90% chance of being utter trash, because that's just how it was back then. You basically had Spider-Man 2 and maybe the odd Marvel Ultimate Alliance X-Men Legends games, and then everything else was bad.
Enter the Matrix was good.
Okay, oh yeah, that one I'll take. Path of Neo was not.
No, we don't talk about that one. But Enter the Matrix was
wasn't
good.
there another one on GameCube specifically, or am I thinking something
I don't
else? No, that might have still been Enter the Matrix, but yeah.
That game was really
But
good.
generally, it's like even Star Wars back in those days, like most of them weren't even that good either. Like generally back in the PS2 early Xbox days, a lot of tie-in stuff just wasn't good.
I beg to differ. There was KOTOR, and there's also Star Wars Pod Racing.
KOTOR, yes. Pod Racing was N64, I believe.
Yeah, I'd still give that the same window.
Well, I mean, like once we got into like serious 3D, not like polygonal jig like triangle stuff. Like once we got into what I guess we consider the modern.
But then once we got into that, then we got Star Wars Battlefield, which is like arguably the best Star Wars game.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Are you trying to make an argument that Star Wars Battle like is not like ideal? It's not the best.
No,
one.
I guess my memory is also remembering other things like what was the movie tie? There was like an entire like movie tie into like around the. I think it might have been not Return of the Jedi. Oh my God, the third movie,
Phantom Menace,
Revenge of the Sith, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was some. It was either an Attack of the Clones one or a Revenge of the Sith one, and it was just horrible. And then like there's all the canceled Star Wars games around all that point and everything. Like generally though, from like most of those PS2 days, especially, so much tie-in stuff was just literal shovelware. It was bad.
Yeah.
So like we're still at this point where we're kind of in the similar thing of like we're getting used to video game movies not sucking. We're also at this point now that we're like, wow, they're actually making movie tie-in games and they don't suck.
Yeah, it's amazing what you do when you take like time with the property and you like.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that when you care about something, it actually doesn't play like garbage?
Yeah. Speaking of tie-in games, wrapping that up a little bit there, let's move on to the next big news, the one I'm more excited for. This is coming from the Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher. Basically, this is coming from CD Projekt Red. For the next installment in the Witcher series of video games, we're moving from the Red Engine to Unreal Engine 5. However, Red Engine, the technology which powers Cyberpunk 2077, is still being used for the development of the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 expansion. Adam, nothing but good news in this tweet. I am so excited. And then they had a picture here of the. They have another tweet that they quoted here from The Witcher, and it says, "A new saga begins," and it has the medallion buried in the snow. Let's start first with Cyberpunk. So they're confirming that they are staying with the Red Engine. That totally makes sense. You know, they're not going to switch an engine halfway through a game. And the second part that they talked about, Cyberpunk, they confirmed the expansions are coming. Bring it on. I want more of my Cyberpunk.
So what you're saying is I should wait.
No, get in now, buddy. Get in now. Get your 100, 200 hours.
I just hear that I should put this game aside for another 12 months, wait for everything else to go on sale again, and then, you know, I can talk shit about Cyberpunk for at least another year before I actually play the game.
My prediction is coming around. People are starting to play Cyberpunk and saying, "Man, what an awesome game! I can't believe like this. You know, I doubted it, but now it's really good." Kaylan was totally right. Nobody's saying that part, but they should be.
Yeah, I've seen all the tweets.
Yeah, I told you it's doing a flip. Cyberpunk is gonna come back and be remembered well.
Well, I mean, look, that's all and great, but hey, whatever the new Witcher game is, CD Projekt Red, then can you do us all a solid and like make sure the game runs first before you ship it? Can we make sure we do that this time? Because that's 2 in a row. Everybody kind of forgets that Witcher 3 also ran like ass when it launched.
Oh, The Witcher was not running well. Granted, it wasn't as bad as Cyberpunk, but like it was janky as hell on the PS4. I remember playing that, and it did not start smooth. It had at one point a dumb thing where you had to like almost like a Fallout 4 kind of situation where you couldn't drop your stash into like a community box. So, like if you put your stash in like one city, you couldn't go back and get it at a different one. You had to go back to that place to get it. It was the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah, so like cool, Cyberpunk's better now. Okay, can we make sure we don't have another Cyberpunk situation though where we have to wait 18 months? Because I mean, look, if I don't got to spend money on Witcher 4 or whatever you call it for a year and a half, cool. I'll figure something else to do with that $80. But I mean, I really liked Witcher 3. I'd like to, you know, play a good Witcher game that's new right at launch and not feel like I'm gonna literally return it in a precedent that was recently just set for the first time with Cyberpunk.
Well, this is something I was going to ask you. Like, what is the situation for The Witcher coming off of like following Cyberpunk? Like, do you think that do you think by the time it comes out, it'll all be forgiven and people will just be excited for this, or do you think that they're gonna have like, is this a make or break it situation for Cyberpunk or for CD Projekt Red, or what do you think the impact of Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be for Witcher?
You know how every time a new Madden game gets announced and everybody online talks about, oh, it's just going to be another copy and paste job, and it still sells really well? There's going to be a lot of articles about, hey, CD Projekt Red, the last 2 times they've released games, look at the state they've been in. Everybody remembers Cyberpunk, and everybody's going to be like, yeah. And in the back of their mind, they're going, I already pre-ordered Witcher 4. I don't care.
That's gonna be me. Let's go.
I, being the guy that basically pre-orders 1 game a year, is gonna go, nope.
Come on, Witcher. Let's do it.
I mean, again, like, I'm sure they'll show out a gameplay trailer but close to when it comes out, and we'll all be like, oh, that looks so good. But I'm also gonna be the one that sits there and goes, I remember last time you did something. I haven't forgotten. In the same way that, look, when BioWare finally gives us some goddamn Mass Effect footage to look at, I'm gonna go, that looks so fucking good. But I haven't forgot Andromeda, you sons of bitches. So, Cyberpunk is kind of like, even if by the time The Witcher 4 gets announced or whatever they call it, and I've played through Cyberpunk and it's a fucking hooter of a game, like, I love it. And I come on the show and be like, Kaylan, I still hate you, but you're right.
I'm waiting for that day, buddy. I'm waiting for that day to come.
And I'm going to be like, man, that game was like, that was a solid 9 out of 10 game. I'm still going to look at that Witcher game and be like, I'm not getting you. I'm waiting. I don't trust you. Now that's me. You're going to be the guy that's going, I don't trust you, but I don't want to be the one left out on day one.
Oh god, yeah, no. Honestly, I love Cyberpunk. I love like CD Projekt Red and what they do. I mean, granted, I didn't play too much of 1 or 2 of the Witcher series. I only played the 3rd, so I'm new to the bandwagon. But man, I like what they do. Is it great? No, it has its problems. But so does Bethesda, and we give Bethesda a pass all the time.
Speak for yourself. I haven't bought a Bethesda game in 4 years.
Okay, well, apparently I do. So I'm part of that. I'm part of the problem here. But
so it's your fault.
100%. Yeah. Well, I mean, when they're like, "Hey, want to go explore a nuked out city?" I'm like, "Hell yes, I do." Oh, like now. Once again, when Fallout 4 came, that idea of living in a nuked out world was so far removed than it is now. So I don't know how I'd relate to it. But hey, at the time I was like, yeah, I'd like to go explore like post-apocalyptic worlds.
Now a new Fallout game comes out. We're all like, dude, we just lived it for 3 years. I don't want to experience that again for a while.
This is too real, Bethesda. This is too close. I can't do this anymore.
All of a sudden, Division 3 comes out. Hey guys, you want to play a game about being in this place during a pandemic? No, actually.
Yeah. So in terms of the Witcher series, there's not a lot to go on, but I did some deep diving in terms of Witcher lore, so you don't have to. But yeah, so when you look at that, like if you look at the Twitter post, it looks like it's like some sort of cat or lynx medallion. Like it doesn't look like the wolf that they typically use. So I was like, okay, well, what would this signify? What would this mean? They have confirmed that this is not Witcher 4. So this is not a continuation of that Witcher trilogy. So this is probably going to be a new trilogy. So I was looking into Witcher lore, and the idea with Witcher is that there's like several different schools. I think there's something like 8 different schools. For the purposes of this, I would say that medallion, would you say it's fair to say that medallion looks like some sort of cat or something?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, right? So there is apparently in the game a school of cat, and I guess this school of Witchers were like complete psychopaths, and eventually they got kind of closed out and shut down and stuff. But reading into it, I was looking at what happens in the game, and so after the story of Geralt comes to an end, they talk about a school of lynx. So the lynx school that kind of comes out after the school of the wolf, which is what Geralt of Rivia is from. So the remaining members of the School of the Wolf, and this is gonna be spoilers for the Witcher series and stuff. If you don't want to hear it, don't listen to it. So the remaining members of the School of the Wolf, notably Eskel, Geralt of Rivia, Lambert, they separated at the end of the story. And continuing his work as an active member of the school, Eskel goes east, and then Lambert goes south, and Kira Metz goes with him. And eventually they want to kind of reunite and build up this. They want to go collect this caravan, which used to be what this is called. The school of the cats used to use this caravan as sort of like a mobile um, Witcher school. So they try and recapture it and get it. So Lambert and Kira Metz decide to like join forces with a bunch of the other people to go get it. And so they end up building this new school of cat, which they call the School of Lynx. And then they started, operating it and producing new Witchers again. And so what they want to do is they want to show that like they're not, psychopaths like the old School of the Cats were. And so they end up, making new Witchers and having a tournament to kind of show that they are more prestigious. They're designed to be not as heavy hitters as the School of the Wolves, but more agile, limber, kind of dealing quick critical strikes. But around this same time, they're starting to colonize the new continent that they found, which I believe is going to be called Fabiola. So this is like a new continent they found, sort of like a new world. And at this point, some of the witches of the cat start moving to this new continent and establishing themselves in this new world, and they get a little bit more respect and prestige because there are more creatures and new creatures to fight. So I think where this game would go is we're looking at a situation where you are a new member of the School of Lynx, establishing in the new world, and it's not going to be like it is in the original trilogy where monsters are kind of on the out, the witchers are dying. This is probably going to be a new world. Witchers are coming to kind of pacify the land in that sort of sense. I think you're going to play as Ciri? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. I think you might just play as a new original Witcher in the game. So that's kind of the lore, and that's where I think the game's going to go. So yeah. Any thoughts on that, Adam?
I don't know enough of lore to really comment because I haven't played The Witcher 3 in, oh god, it feels like 6-7 years.
Did you ever play the expansions? Did you play like
no? I only played the original, and then by the time that I finished it, I was like knee deep in Destiny again, so I never saw the sun for like months after that.
Dude,
I've heard good things about Blood and Wine though.
Heart of Stone is meh. Like it's good, but it's an average DLC. But I think it's Blood and Wine. Oh, that is that's a game. That's a 10 to 15 hour game in and of itself, and you can pick it up for like $10. I would totally recommend you playing Blood and Wine.
Have you seen my backlog? I ain't got time for that. That's cutting into Cyberpunk time.
You're not even playing Cyberpunk.
Future Cyberpunk time.
No, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't played Witcher 3 and its expansions, highly recommend it. You can pick it up now for like $10-15. Fantastic game. So much fun.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in such early stages of the announcement. Like, it's a big deal because most people have been wanting a Witcher game for a while. Cyberpunk was just kind of like the in-between. So at least hearing it's kind of like how GTA 6 finally got officially announced. So everybody's like, cool, now we can get excited again. So at least we know it's real. Witcher, whatever it's going to be. Now people are like, okay, so we know what's coming next. So now you can start all the hype. But like we're still probably talking 4 or 5 years, so we're a ways away from that.
Well, the fact that they're building on a new engine as well is going to like impact how long it takes for that to get finalized. So
for sure.
I'd say probably 6 years.
Yeah, I mean,
CD Projekt Red does not move fast.
I mean, they'll probably have a trailer out this year, and then you'll wait 10 years for that.
Yeah, don't believe the trailer. Hyped, people, get hyped.
Because how long was it that Cyberpunk's initial trailer came out before the game released?
Wasn't it like 2012? Wasn't it like 2012?
It feels something like that. Like it was a long time. Because let's see, first Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, January 10th, 2013.
I have it here. Was first announced in 2012.
Well, this is just officially on Cyberpunk's YouTube channel, so I don't know when the actual date was.
That might be the first trailer, but I think they announced it on 2012.
Yeah, but like the first that initial trailer with just like the girl that was like half naked, like that's early 2013. So and the game came out what? Didn't it come out 2020 and then got taken off the shelves?
Yeah, 2020.
So like that's actually not like nearly as I thought it was nearly a decade. I guess 7-ish years. But like that's it's about 7.5 years. That's still pretty ridiculous for a game to announce. But then again, Bethesda, Elder Scrolls. So, because Elder Scrolls 6 was announced, what, 2-3 years ago, and we're still probably like 5 years away from that. So, what do I know?
Yeah. Let's move on to the last topic for today. Sony's acquiring another studio, Jade Raymond's Canadian-owned Haven Studios. So yeah, Sony's going to be acquiring Haven Studios, a studio that just, I think, got announced last year. I think we were talking about it. Haven't released a game yet, but they're developing a new property for PlayStation, which is described as a AAA multiplayer experience. So this is coming from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. So PlayStation Studios expanding again. Sony announced Monday that it has reached an agreement to acquire Haven Studios, the new development team led by Jade Raymond, formerly the head of Ubisoft Toronto, EA Motive, and Google's shuttered Stadia Games Entertainment. Womp womp. The Montreal-based studio is developing a new property for PlayStation described as a AAA multiplayer experience. Haven Studio was officially announced last year through Sony's State of PlayStation blog. Yeah, so they haven't released anything yet, but like they've got some pedigree to them. Adam, what makes you like this is not typical Sony MO to just go out and buy a studio that hasn't made a game yet. Now they argue this is coming now from GameIndustry.biz. Essentially, Sony was saying that they're just impressed with what Haven's doing. They're ahead of schedule, doing great work, and so they're just like, we need to buy them. But do you think that this is more of a reflection of, the promise of Haven Studio, or do you think this is more Sony wanting to lock stuff down as soon as they can because of the exclusive wars?
Or it's probably a bit of both. I mean, I imagine like with somebody who apparently, has the pedigree that Jade does, who knows, like, I don't know every single person that works for that company. Maybe there's a lot of names in there that Sony or like people that work within the PlayStation family go, yeah, those are actually pretty good people. Like, I can vouch for them. And they probably said, okay, they probably had a door in because somebody likes Jade or somebody likes, it's like a number of people that are at that company. And they probably said, hey, what are you guys up to? Because that people in this industry keep tabs with one another. They're constantly seeing what's going on, unless it's like very, very cards close to the chest kind of deal. But they probably seen what's going on, checked out whatever they're producing, and went, wow, like this actually looks really good. And they're probably looking at it being like, okay, this is something that could fill a void, because a lot of multiplayer stuff is not necessarily Sony's game. Most of Sony's games still to this point is single player adventures. So they're probably looking at what things they can do to fill up space. Unfortunately, it sounds like Haven's business model for their game seems to be live service, which is a red flag to me personally. But we've also said on the show before, hey, if somebody figures out how to do the formula correctly, then we'll accept it. I mean, I still go back to Destiny. Destiny, I think, does it well. There are ways to make this work, and depending on whatever it is they're working on, like they may be doing something really cool idea that when we finally get to see whatever it is, we'll go, damn, no wonder Sony was interested in that. But this is all just speculation at this point, to which I say, I mean, it's cool. We have a Canadian company added to the list. We're going to rep some national pride. But aside from that, like, I what do I say? Like, I don't know what the hell they're making. Like, it's just more like, I'm going to have to take them at their word. Like, Sony seems to be the quality whore right now in the business between the three parties. So, if they're saying that they're doing good stuff and they want to sign them, I'll take them at their word. But like you said too, probably a little bits of it being like, well, we better get these guys before Microsoft starts sniffing around.
Yeah, I think it's a combination that one, Sony probably sees the amount of talent that's just behind this, and they want to lock that talent down. I think it's also a matter, it's cheaper probably to buy them now before they actually have a hit on them. So having that kind of cost-effective piece where they're not having to pay, for a studio that has proven themselves, it's easier to kind of get in on the ground floor.
Speaking of which, is there a listed number that they paid for them, or is that still like not there yet?
I am not seeing any,
because I haven't seen anything either. It's not like the Bethesda buy or the Bungie one where we literally have dollar amounts. I haven't seen anything personally. It might just be that I've missed it, but
yeah, and I think because it's not a publicly traded company, they don't have to disclose.
That's also possible. Because we heard that they acquired Bluepoint, and we never heard a dollar amount for that. So who knows? Yeah, it's hard to quantify all this stuff because again, we're talking about a company that's never developed a game before. We don't know what the price was. We don't know we don't even really know what they're working on right now, so we can't really even get a sense of like what Sony thinks they're buying. But it may be a sense of like it's not like if let's say it costs them less than $100 million for Sony, that's peanuts. It means nothing. So it's a gamble. If they end up doing really well, you now have a company under your framework that costs you almost nothing to acquire. And if it fails, oh well, you take some of the team members, you throw them with any of your other teams, and problem solved. Or you just you cut them loose, and they can go do whatever they want as freelancers. So on Sony's side, unless that dollar amount is high, there's not really a loss for you. You're just gambling on something small. It's kind of like a sports team taking a risk on an entry level player because like if it doesn't work out, you throw them in the minors, no big deal, or you cut them loose.
Yeah, this is definitely a speculative purchase on Sony's part, and I hope it pays out dividends. I mean, I think they're making an educated bet, but still a bet nonetheless.
Well, it'd be nice for us to talk about a Canadian company that isn't related to Ubisoft or EA for once.
Talk about Rockstar sometimes.
Nah, yeah, but honestly, the only times I think of Canada when it comes to games, I know that Toronto, Montreal have become a bit of a hotbed, but like my brain, whenever I hear Toronto or Montreal, is Ubisoft, or I think EA Sports in Vancouver. Like that's literally the only things I can think of with Canadian. Because if you ask me to name Canadian companies right now, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Apart from the Cuphead guys, I should say.
There's also Drinkbox.
Don't know what that is actually.
Really? They're the guys who made like Drinkbox.
Oh, Drinkbox. No, I still don't even know what that is.
Yeah, they made a ton of games for like the Vita and stuff like that. They made like
Guacamelee. That's why, because I didn't play a Vita.
Drinkbox
games.
Yeah, they're in Toronto. They're like a small indie Toronto studio.
Okay, Guacamelee. Yeah, I know that's like it's okay, but off like the top of my head in memory, I don't remember. Whereas if you said them to me, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember now. But like in terms of like off the top of my head, without having to like research, it really is just Ubisoft for the most part.
WB Montreal.
Yeah,
there's quite a few. We have a surprisingly big games industry here in Canada.
Oh yeah, we do. Like we used to have I mean, I don't have cable anymore, but there was a point where like even in movie theaters, we would get commercials all the time, like before movies, about how Canadian game studios are doing stuff. Like Ryan Reynolds was front and center on one of these ads for a while. So like it's definitely a big part of what we do these days. And I think it just for some reason it's an underrated tech like an underrated like tech hub in Toronto. It's specifically Vancouver and Toronto, but Montreal also has its bits too.
Montreal's big, yeah.
And Montreal, it works well too because again, you have French and English, so you can also work with Europe a lot better that way. So there's also that front. So yeah, like we actually have a lot than you would think, but still, most of the time you're thinking like Texas, California, that level stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, with Haven, it's really just going to be like hey, this will probably be this could be something really cool, and it'd be nice to see, another studio that Sony acquires that ends up popping out good stuff without it being some company that was making games for everyone. Whereas in this case, we don't know what Haven was producing, and we don't know for what. So now you don't have to think about it. If Sony wants to, they can just release it to themselves, and that's it. And nobody looks the wiser because you didn't have any prior interest in what these people were doing. It was just a company. Yeah. Like, look, if there are people pretending to be like, oh, I can't believe they're stealing another studio from us. Sorry, guys. Bethesda and, every other company that Microsoft has acquired, like, what do you got on Sony? Like, Bungie? Okay, sure. But, like, Haven? Really? You're going to die on that hill with everything else that's been purchased? Really? So, like, this is a non-story. If it ends up becoming, like, a really big thing from Haven, then I guess it will be like every other conversation we have on this where I go, I hope that gets put on PC. I hope Xbox players get to experience this. So it goes both ways. And like I said, it's a gamble. So, we'll see as it plays out. But we got to see at least footage from the games first before we know if that deal was worth anything. Because this is literally just a paper transaction to us. We have no idea what we're walking into yet.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what they come out with.
We're just homering really hard for Canadian content, It's look, if anybody knows Canadian content here in this country or CanCon, we are contractually obligated in this country to have, I think it's like 30% of content like on the radio has to be Canadian. I
Every
should
third
know this.
song.
I went to school for broadcasting. You think I would remember this? But
Yeah, I think it's like every third song has to, but it doesn't have to be written, but there has to be some Canadian involved. So like, I think that's why you get like some like random like I think
no, it's just
like you
it's
get
why
some
when you listen to classic rock, the Tragically Hip plays at least twice an hour. Okay,
other than the fact that
or it's
Tragically Hip
not.
is
Yeah,
fantastic.
Tragically Hip and the Guess Who usually.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of other ones, but yeah, Rush. Anyways, speaking of, I don't know how to segue for this. We're just gonna switch right
Speaking
into
of Rush, sure.
it. Let's rush into the next topic. I'm getting better with these segues. I'm doing terrible. So it's hard. We need to have like transition music. Or something.
Look. My job. I'm the king of segues and puns, and you're the king of just being the guy that actually reads all the articles because I sure as shit don't.
Shh, you're giving it away, Adam. All right, let's wrap the show up as always with trophy stumpers. I did not have any takers this week, so I am having to be the one that comes up with this list for you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to set me up with a list of 10 trophies for Adam, feel free to do so. You can message us on the Discord, email, or through socials. Yeah, let me know what you guys want to use for trophy stumpers. If you're unfamiliar with the game, what we do here is I give Adam 10 trophies, 3 guesses to guess what game this is from. Adam, are you ready for this one?
I am in just a moment, but I just realized one really stupid thing that I can't believe I didn't think of.
What was that?
BioWare's Canadian.
I thought you're looping that in with EA.
No, I totally forgot that BioWare is literally based in Edmonton. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that one counts too.
Hang your head in shame.
I was just checking the list and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, Adam, why did you forget BioWare? Oh wait, I remember why I forget about BioWare because I don't care about them anymore until the next Mass Effect game comes out. Please be good.
Adam, are you ready for trophy stumpers?
No.
Fantastic. Let's get going.
No.
All right. So the first 3 trophies we have: Skull Kebab,
Okay.
Hat Trick,
Okay.
and Caged.
And Caged. All right.
Yeah. So Skull Kebab, Hat Trick, and Caged.
I have no guess, so I'm gonna meme it. Mutant League Hockey for the Sega Genesis, because that clearly works with all 3 of them.
Yes, the first game that actually had trophies. Good guess, Adam.
Yeah, wouldn't that be an interesting fact? The first game that ever had trophies was a Mortal Kombat meets ice hockey game on a console that didn't actually have trophies. That would be a very interesting way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, next 3: Cyber Initiative, Disco's Not Dead, and Tower Champion.
Well, as a dumb guess with Cyberpunk.
It is not Cyberpunk.
Aw, what a shame. What a shame.
Okay, last 4. Thank you for being a fan. Brutal End, Competitor, and Get Over Here.
Oh, okay.
So Skull Kebab, Hat Trick, Caged, Cyber Initiative, Disco's Not Dead, Tower Champion, Thank You for Being a Fan, Brutal End, Competitor, and Get Over Here.
Well, we know it's Mortal Kombat based then, because that's kind of on the nose, unless somebody decided to be really clever. See, the problem now is, again, there's like at least 4 guesses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not fair.
Assuming it's one of the obvious ones, though.
Yeah, assuming it's actually Mortal Kombat, or it's just some completely thrown together. You could be throwing me way off the trail for all I know. So,
Maybe.
Oh god, can you give me the full list?
Yes. Skull Kebab, Hat Trick, Caged, Cyber Initiative, Disco's Not Dead, Tower Champion, Thank You for Being a Fan, Brutal End, Competitor, and Get Over Here.
I don't think you're throwing me off the trail because way too many of those actually match Mortal Kombat characters. Like even the fan one is a katana reference. Oh god. Now the question is do I have to start like zeroing in on who, like without spoiling, who's in some of these games and who isn't?
See, I'm not worried at all about like getting like trouble with Jeopardy by using their theme song because I'm tone deaf, so I don't have to worry about like it coming up on the radars. We're gonna need a guess there.
Watch you reverse psychology on me on this one, because I'm gonna be really mad if it's actually Mortal Kombat 11, because that's, I'm currently playing that. But is it the reboot, like Mortal Kombat 9?
It is not the reboot. It is Mortal Kombat 11.
Son of a
I had nothing prepared, and you're like, I've been playing Mortal Kombat, and I'm like, sounds
well,
good.
here's the problem. I thought that's where you, as soon as you said the list, I'm like, okay. So now am I going to galaxy brain this? Is he just doing MK11, or is it going to be like, he's going to think MK11 because we want to talk about sorcery on this show.
Layers
you
upon layers
you
upon
Jedi
layers
mind tricked my ass.
Layers and layers of subterfuge, my friend. All right. Well, this is going to be a clearly defined.
I'm taking this up with the commissioner too. I think Jedi mind tricking is cheating.
Nope.
I think there needs to be a piss test in here somewhere, because we need to check for some sort of drugs that totally aren't there. And yeah, clearly you're on steroids. This is why this home run derby is okay. I think I'm in a completely different world now. All right.
The only piss is the piss I'm taking out of you.
Oh, you
taking
tried.
the piss on it.
You tried.
I know. I don't know what that was.
Speaking of piss, let's piss off this shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast for all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the gaming world. If you like that and you want to hear more, we have a ton of episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Pixel Play Podcast. If you want to be part of the show, feel free to message us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com or on our socials, pixelplaycast. We have a Discord that you can be part of as well. We'd love to have you guys there. And as always, if you like this and you want to share it with your friends, we'd greatly appreciate that. We are slowly climbing up in listeners, and we know that we have more to come. If you want to share this with your friends, anyone who you think might be interested in Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Witcher, or anything like that, let them know about us. I think they'd like it. We certainly like it. You like it, so why wouldn't you share it? You can say that, I found these guys before everyone else did. You're on the ground floor, my friend. Share it with your friends. Let them know that you found this before anyone else. Share it with them. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.